Okay, let's just dive right into this incredibly fascinating microscopic world that makes up literally every living thing on Earth. If you're an ambitious student prepping for your Class 9 science exam, you are in the exact right place. Because today, we're going to decode the absolute building blocks of life.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The discovery of the cell. 2. The modern cell theory. 3. Prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. 4. Plant versus animal cells. And 5. Cell organelles and their functions.
All right, Section 1, Discovery of the Cell, a first look at life.
You know, the timeline here is just incredible. Back in the 13th century, expanding the use of lenses and eyeglasses totally set the stage for this. By 1620, the first compound microscopes appeared in Europe, which honestly changed everything. But 1665 was the real game changer. Using a compound microscope, Robert Hooke examined these super thin slices of bottle cork and discovered what we now call cells. And then, just a few years later, in 1676, Anton van Leeuwenhoek improved those lenses and became the very first person to see actual living, moving microorganisms.
But where does the word cell actually come from? Well, when Hooke looked at that cork, he saw a multitude of tiny pores. Because the magnification was pretty low, he was really just looking at empty plant cell walls. But their structure reminded him of cella or cellulae, which are Latin words for a small room. You know, exactly like the simple, tiny rooms monks lived in, or the six-sided cells you'd see in a honeycomb. And that is exactly why we still use the word cell today.
Moving on to Section 2, the modern cell theory, the foundational rules.
Okay, this brilliantly illustrates the generally accepted tenets of modern cell theory. First off, all known living things are made of one or more cells. Second, and this is a really great one to remember for your exams, all cells arise from pre-existing cells by division. That's a rule famously added by the scientist Rudolf Virchow. Third, the cell is the fundamental unit of structure and function. Plus, all energy flow, like your metabolism, occurs entirely within these cells, and they all contain genetic material, so DNA and RNA.
Section 3. Prokaryotes versus eukaryotes, the types of cells.
Notice the stark visual contrast here. Over on the left, we've got the ancient, simple prokaryotic cell. Just look at how its DNA is totally free-floating in a nucleoid region without any protective membrane. But on the right, we have the highly complex, modern eukaryotic cell. It's completely packed with intricate membrane-bound organelles and has a very distinct, heavily protected central nucleus.
Let's look a bit closer at prokaryotes, like bacteria. They are always unicellular organisms. And they're actually the oldest type of cell, having popped up about 4 billion years ago. They come in these very distinct shapes too. The spherical, round ones are called cauci. The rod-shaped ones are bacillus, and the helical or spiral ones are spirilla. Now, if you're taking notes right now, this is the perfect summary table to memorize. Prokaryotic cells are tiny. We're talking less than 5 millimeters. They have no nucleus, they lack membrane-bound organelles, and they have circular DNA without proteins. Eukaryotic cells, on the flip side, are larger, greater than 10 millimeters. They boast a true nucleus, have a super complex internal structure of organelles, and contain linear DNA that's associated with proteins to form chromatin.
All right, Section 4. Plant versus animal cells, eukaryotic differences.
Comparing these cross-sections side by side, you can immediately spot the difference in their overall vibe and shape. The plant cell is really rigid, squarish, and rectangular. The animal cell, though, it's roundish and highly irregular in its shape.
So why do they look so different? Well, the plant cell needs a thick, rigid cell wall made of cellulose fibers to give it structural support. It also absolutely needs chloroplasts to capture sunlight and make its own food. And it features one massive central vacuole just to maintain its water balance. Animal cells, on the other hand, lack a cell wall entirely. We definitely don't have chloroplasts to make our own food, and our vacuoles are much, much smaller and fluid-filled.
On to Section 5, Cell Organelles, Structures and Functions. So, here's a question for you. What exactly powers this bustling microscopic world inside you, right? Like, we know cells do incredible work, dividing, moving, and building, but where does the energy actually come from to keep you alive? Enter the mitochondrion. This is a massive term to master for your exams, widely known as the powerhouse of the cell. It's a spherical to rod-shaped organelle with a double membrane. The inner membrane is folded over and over into projections called crista, and its main job? to convert the energy stored in glucose into ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is basically the high-energy molecule your cells use to do literally everything.
Let's see how this builds into cellular respiration. Out of a total of 38 ATP molecules generated from just one single glucose molecule, the first stage, glycolysis in the cytoplasm, only makes 2. The second stage, the Krebs cycle inside the mitochondria, makes another 2. But the third stage, the electron transport chain, also in the mitochondria, generates a massive 34 ATP. That incredible, amazing efficiency is exactly why the mitochondria earns the title of powerhouse.
Next up is the lysosome. Think of this as the cell's highly acidic recycling center. These are vesicles containing potent digestive enzymes, where the digestion of cell nutrients takes place. And because they have the power to break down waste and can even digest the cell itself if it becomes damaged, they are often dramatically referred to in your studies as the suicidal bags of the cell.
Check out this beautifully labeled plant cell. Look at the massive blue vacuole right in the center, doing all the heavy lifting of maintaining water balance and keeping the cell's rigid shape. And notice those green chloroplasts. That's where the green pigment chlorophyll captures light energy from sunlight to turn water and carbon dioxide gas into glucose and oxygen during photosynthesis. It's brilliant.
And now, looking at the animal cell, try to spot the rough endoplasmic reticulum right next to the nucleus. It's called rough because it's completely studded with these small organelles called ribosomes, which are the sites of protein synthesis. Those newly produced proteins are then shipped over in tiny vesicles to the Golgi body, that flattened, layered organelle that looks almost like a stack of pancakes. That's where they are modified, packaged, and exported right out of the cell.
Even with all their differences in shape and specific organelles, it is so vital to remember their shared architecture. Both plant and animal cells rely on this incredible foundational machinery. They both have a nucleus containing DNA chromosomes, a semi-permeable cell membrane, jelly-like cytoplasm, ribosomes for making proteins, and mitochondria for releasing energy. They're basically two brilliantly different expressions of the exact same eukaryotic blueprint.
Think about this for a second. Trillions of these complex, microscopic machines are working inside your body, communicating and producing energy right this very second. You are, quite literally, a walking universe made of tiny, perfect eukaryotic cells. So keep exploring, keep asking questions about how it all works together, and you are absolutely going to ace that exam.